Hey, how we doing? Happy Wednesday. It is August 11th, 2021. I'm your host, Rigo Murillo, and I am joined today by two great guest hosts. Two gentlemen I've known for a while. I think you guys know them too. They've been in the industry for quite some time. I don't really think they need too much introduction, but I'll go ahead and introduce them anyways. So, good friends of mine, and hopefully, good friends of you. If not, you're missing out. Mr. Ruben and Mr. Sam. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rigo.
Hey, guys. So we've got you guys from two different coastal fronts, I would say, right? So we've got a Texan, and a Floridian. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so right before we got on the show, maybe we should have had that live. We were I think we were showing off our muscles. We were talking about pull-ups. What are you up to now, Sam? How many pull-ups a day?
Well, you got to do 50 a day and 200 push-ups a day. And after you do it for a while and get through the pain, it gets easier and easier every day. So you can do about 20 straight now, 3 sets of 20. You just keep building on it from there.
I love it. So one of the things that I remember about you that cracks me up is when you and I got done with the AWIA show in San Diego in 2020. We got back, and both you and I were pretty sick. There was something going around right about that time of the year. It was kind of freaking people out, and you and I got really sick, and you tried to run it out.
That's right. Yeah, you induce a fever.
You did.
Yeah, I fight viruses and any pathogen in my body. I try to fight it. I take on a very aggressive mentality, and it doesn't last long. That's the problem.
I went to my local quackapactor and loaded up on a bunch of hippie pills and slept. Drank a bunch of water and overloaded my body with nutrients.
Sleep is good too.
Yeah, sleep is good. Mr. Ruben.
Yes, sir.
How we doing? You're kind of quiet there.
No, I'm just trying to. I want to know how Sam did running that out, because it was probably a controversial virus that you were running off.
Well, we don't know what it was at the time. In March of 20, that was really the pivotal month.
Yep.
And a lot of us came back from the show, and a lot of us were talking, and a lot of us were freaking out because we felt like crap. It could have just been a random seasonal conference virus because we're all in each other's faces. But we could have, who knows, we could have had it, and we didn't really have the tech at the time to quickly find out. So there was definitely a rumor mill after the San Diego O&M, definitely.
Yeah, it was like who drank off of what drink and who was hanging around who and who had it confirmed. And I was like, well, it was interesting. Needless to say, it was a very interesting time. Here we go. We are getting close to almost 2 years later, and we're still battling a lot of the challenges that we had that came from that, right? It was interesting. We talked recently on one of the shows about how American Clean Power had to make a decision to cancel the show in Texas. Have you guys seen right now? Husum is still active. It's still going to be active.
It's virtual.
Is that what it is? Okay. See, I wasn't sure. I was just trying to do some digging on that. So they're not going to have a peer-to-peer. Okay. I was just talking to somebody that said they were getting ready to make a trip out there for that event. And I was like, okay.
Well, there's important water slides there. So I think it's a nice place to go. But I don't know if anybody else from the industry is going to be out there.
Interesting. Okay. Well, one of the things that I asked you guys to be on today about was because I was reading a recent Gallup poll. Let me see. I'll share this with you guys and share with the rest of the audience. But there was a Gallup poll that recently came out that went through 2020, and they went in pulled the poll nationally and globally with a bunch of different states, and they were talking about employee engagement. Are they thriving? Are they not? Where are they today? And they started tracking this worry, stress, anger, and sadness. And they've been doing this over the years. And I thought it was really interesting, and it stuck out to me. And I thought, in a lot of the things that I think matter right now for me and in my life is, as I look at where we are in our country specifically, I'm looking at things that are constantly changing. And this is regardless of politics or regardless of what's happening with the virus. But there's a reality that we're getting close to now 2 years of a completely different work culture, a home culture. There's all these environmental changes that are not allowing us to get out and do what we've always done culturally. And I wonder, where are we from an employer standpoint? How are we going to start supporting this changing process? And can you see that just in 10 years, you look from 2020 to 2010, look at the worry and stress level indicators from 32 on the stress to 43 and 28 on the worry to 41. So my question to you guys, and I'll say, Ruben, how do you think this is impacting now the work environments?
Well, this is a loaded question, and we all know that there's a lot of factors into play. You have a younger workforce out there now, different generations, but the outlier is definitely what's going on with the pandemic and regulations and not traveling. There's a lot of things out there. As far as living in Texas, we really haven't missed a beat, which is great. We did shut down a little bit at the very beginning, and we were just basically working remote. So we always had somebody here. There's only 6 of us, so it's not that big of a deal. So we're constantly checking in. We check in each Monday. We check in professionally. We check in personally. So we all know where everybody is. So it's kind of like a way to just say, hey, before we start our Monday meeting, let's check in. Let's see where you're at. How was your weekend? How are you feeling? Get it on the table, and then let's go to work. That's been great for our team. But like I said, we're a small organization, and there's a lot of companies out there that are a lot bigger than us. And I can't imagine what that's like, because personally, if I had to work from home with 5 kids in the house, I think my stress level and my worry level and all those would probably go up 10 points, just because I'd be worried about, Tobias running through the door naked in the middle of this call. That's what I'd be worried about. So I get that part of it. So that's what we do, and that's how we kind of manage it. There's no way to really control this. It's the best thing to do is just talk about it. So that's what. So
it's interesting. I'll bring something up. You made a point that I want to come back to, but Sam, you're in also another state that hasn't been experiencing the same effects that the rest of the country is.
Well, there's a lot of perceptions that are painted by, what our information sources are on the news, right? And then we have perceptions that build off of perceptions, and then we decide that's the way things are. I would say things aren't that much different. It is warmer in Florida, but we did stay more open. We do have a higher virus count now, and we can attest to that from hospital numbers. And how that relates back to that graph, though, means I got a lot of questions when I see that. The first thing I see when you show that is that those are all the negative emotions. I haven't read this report. I would love to see what's happening with the positive emotions, because maybe this is saying everyone's just more emotional. Right?
No, that's a really good point.
Right. I think it's easy to say we're feeling worse, but it could also be the case that we're just more in touch with talking about feelings. The discussions about our work home life is getting more common. This year, you had to have those discussions more because of everything that was happening. So I challenge that a little bit. I also that also motivates me to think about all the good things that are going on and bring the good stories out just to challenge this statement, because that's what we have to do. When I see stuff like this, I'm going to say, what can I do about it? How can I help? And how do you overcome that type of graph? That's my response to seeing that.
Well, so one of the things that that Ruben had said, and I kind of wanted to touch base on, but when we look at how we're all starting to kind of work from home and changing the environment, the big question that I'm wondering is outside of looking at this graph, and you see that there's a progression, right, based on this poll, and this is just one poll, and you're right, it's not showing other aspects of it, right? Because we all know that one of the things that we've seen is, on top of the fact that some people are worried in some areas, there are so many others that love this new format, because you know what? They're more productive. They're getting more done. They're getting to be with their families more. They're developing relationships with their children or their spouses that they didn't have as well, right? They're learning how to have a little more of a balanced life. And I think a lot of employers are realizing that they could get high levels of production out of remote employees. Then you have, folks like myself or like Ruben, I've got 6, he's got 6. I have 5.5 living at the house, right? One's always traveling, one's not, but it's not a very good, positive working environment some days. when you've got that stress and the kids running around. And I look at this and I say, okay, if this is going to be the norm from a management training perspective, how do you think we're developing a company culture that's helping folks thrive? What about the mentorship and the leadership aspect? I'd love to know your guys' opinion there. Like, how are we able to influence those around us the way that we used to in that working environment? Can we still do it? Is it changing?
Yeah, I don't think having kids is any more or less stressful because of COVID. That's just a different discussion. And if you think about, the folks that had kids in the in-person environment we were more accustomed to, that put a lot of pressure on people too, to be in an office for, 8 hours of meetings that, you often have to come home and have a difficult time describing to people what you did that day. Meanwhile, your family's back home. I'd rather a naked kid be in the background and laugh. We can all laugh about this a lot more now than we could at first when it started, than to go into an office with a bunch of zombies that I didn't need to spend my time with, that, they're burned out from corporate America. This has heightened our focus on presence. When you're at home, be home. When you're at work, be at work. Go into the office for face-to-face team meetings and collaboration. Work at home on individual self-thought or self-reflection time. Turn it off, go on a walk, separate, get with your family, be present. This heightens the importance of leadership. I was in an office for many years with leaders that couldn't lead face-to-face. You take them out of a face-to-face environment, and now that puts the emphasis on leadership and dynamic, participatory leadership that much more. So for those folks that have leadership challenges, they're going to have more stovepipes and rice bowls now than they ever did before. And those organizations need to think about who those individuals are to lead a remote team. That's my take. Rigo.
I'm going to piggyback on that, Sam. You said some really important things in there. The main one that stuck out to me was be where you are. That's with when you're in the office, when you're at home, when you're traveling, when you're at a show. That's probably there's a lot of wisdom in that statement. The next comment I'd have on that is you have to know your people, whether your people are remote, whether your people are in the other room. You have to be able to know where they're coming from. You have to have empathy of where they are. That way you can hold them accountable, because you can't hold somebody accountable that you really don't know. So in order to be that leader and to help them grow as a person, I think you have to know your people just like you have to know your customers. I think that's just as important. I mean, on the sales side, we all know that we have our customers, we have our internal sales. You're always selling internally, externally with vendors. So yeah, you have to work on that personal relationship piece and know your people.
That's vet talk. I don't hear enough of know your people in corporate America. When you hear that's a veteran talking every time.
Sorry, I told on myself.
No, this is great. So that is something you both have in common. Both veterans from this country. Thank you both for what you've done. You both obviously called ahead and said, let's wear white polos today and let Rigo not wear a white polo. I should have jumped on board with you guys, but I missed the cue. Sorry. But that's a really good statement. Ruben, know your people. I think that's an important aspect as we've been working with our customers and listening to the market. We recently, Ruben, you were there as well, but we recently attended an in-person event in South Dakota here a few weeks ago. And I'll tell you what, it was really great to be out in that place and in that environment. And I really realized just how much I was missing that. And I'm looking at, so we're talking about employees. We're talking about how to build the right environment. We're talking about the positives and negatives of what's happening now. How do we start engaging with our market if we're not going to be able to have that type of atmosphere? What's your guys' thoughts on this? Because you guys know where I'm at. To me, I mean, we've created something like this specifically so we can get out and start talking to people again. This is what we want to do. We want to engage and we want to talk about these things.
So it's kind of the same thing. I mean, you have somebody who's working remote. You're not going to fly out to their house and talk to them. You're going to do what we're doing right here. That's what we have to do. That's what we're faced with. So we have to make the best of it. And if we don't, then somebody else is going to do it. So that's my 2 cents on it. It's really the same thing. Whether they're working for you, whether they're buying from you, whether you're buying from them, you have to make an effort the best way we can. And I think everybody understands that.
Yeah. I think with teams, you have to do something called over communicate. Maybe get together and talk a little bit more than you think you need to. I was talking to somebody today that didn't even know the interdepartmental goals of his other teammates. Right? They didn't know the strategy they were doing to raise a particular goal and the way they're going about doing that. And they're on the same organization. That's unacceptable, and that will lead to mediocrity. That's the consequence of it. That can lead to people having those negative feelings. If people are doing a great job in a tough environment, it's not by accident. And usually all those metrics are, hitting the cylinder across the board. You're not great in one area and poor in the other. So that over communication and as a leader facilitating that environment. Remote chat can be a great way to share information where you don't need everyone's time. Team meetings to go through goals, even if it's repetitive, at the expense of making sure nothing goes overlooked. Those don't take a lot of time, and they go a really long way to create that team atmosphere. And I'm seeing that work well with a remote team now. We're in different cities. Forget about going into the office because it's not as productive to do that 40 hours a week anyway. Get in, have the meal, have the meeting, get out. For customers, try to get together. If you have to travel, go have a meal somewhere. Find a mutually agreeable place because a lot of the corporate offices are still closed and have limitations. So there's some creativity, some over communicating. I think that's required by the leaders in our businesses today.
I like where this is going, and I was getting ready to actually bring up that exact question, which is, okay, what's the responsibility for us as leaders, as mentors? What should we be doing to strengthen our skill set for this work environment? And is it the employee's responsibility? I mean, we understand there should always be that level, But I really think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of responsibility as leaders, as managers, as those mentors in these environments, that we are driving that. This is my personal opinion. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on it. And then the other part is that we are seeking our own environment to be able to fill us, right? You can only take from an ATM for so long. You got to make deposits before you keep making withdrawals. Think about it. Like, are we having leader burnout?
Sam, you burn out?
Like, I mean, everyone's human. Everybody can burn out. The good leader has found a way to stay balanced. The good leader takes care of him or herself first, because then everything follows. The leader that can't manage self can't manage others. Look for that balance in folks, and also recognize, some situations are different than others. We're in a situation now nationally. Forget about all the states for a minute. You can't go to a state that isn't looking for help in restaurants, in hospitals. You can't find enough wind techs in our wind industry. And that's a systemic issue. And that's going to make the environment more challenging for the leaders and the personnel. And you've got to find creative ways around it. I think we have a tough industry. We have a lean industry, and a lot of others like that. And so, yeah, the demands are high, but we got to put our people first. I like how Ruben, created that point to overshadow this conversation about people. You got to know those folks and take care of them.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm beating a dead horse here, but the best thing we can do as leaders is listen. And when we're not listening, stuff starts to go sideways. We know that. And when it starts to go sideways, like Sam said, we have to start looking at ourselves. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, it's gonna go sideways. That's all there is to it. So it's really simple, but hard at the same time, because you have to be aware of all these things, and to have that in the front of your mind is it's kind of challenging sometimes. The great ones, they have it there. They're good, and they're always aware of where they are. The key for me, I catch myself sometimes, is being able to do that at work and then being exhausted when I get home, and still having to do that with your kids, because you have to do the same thing with your wife and kids, because they're part of the team too. So keep that in mind out there.
So this comes down to the push-ups and sit-ups, right? We're talking, right? So one of the viewers, Dave Reese, had made a comment to a 4-day work week. I'm hoping he'll share more about it. I'd like to know more about what he's talking. He said an experimental planned trial of 4-day work weeks. I like the sound of that. Stronger environments. But you said something earlier, Sam, and I didn't even really take this into account. But trying to explain my day to my family was one of the most difficult things I used to have to try to do. To try to explain how exhausted I was mentally from a particular day, or what I was doing, and how it made sense, right? By the time I got home, I would I definitely wasn't sounding interesting, but at the same time, the last thing I wanted to do was just talk about the last 10, 11, 12 hours of what I was doing. And now they're probably more connected and more understanding and more supportive, because they're watching it live and they're getting it. They understand it more than ever before. I mean, as you guys know, I've got some of my family working in our company as well now, but that's a really good point. I never really thought about that. Like, think about how difficult it is in our lines and careers to try to explain sometimes what you do when it's not something clear.
Yeah, right? Try to be the person listening to how someone's 12-hour day just went, because quite frankly, nobody wants to listen to you. Okay. And so one of the rules you might think about is not talking about work. Again, separate with a drive or a coffee or a walk, and then, come home and find out how everybody else's day was. Strive to do what Ruben said is important with your team, but with your family too. Strive to come home and listen and switch yourself off. Now, if you're in a role where you can't switch yourself off, you either need a break or you need another job. You got to find a place to get that balance. The 4-day work week, it was a nice buzz line from Iceland. Look, I love the Europeans and how happy they are, but they're also a different culture than we are. And there's some ways about, American society and the way our country has just grown over the years. It's kind of the way we are. So there's a lot of places that already do that. There's balance you can find in your day without a 4-day work week. I think the point is about finding balance between working too much and not contributing enough. And maybe it's a 4-day work week. Maybe it's waking up early and going to bed earlier. Okay. How many of us stay up wasting our time doing garbage or eating junk, right? Look at the habits of successful individuals. They do the same thing every day, and none of them are up after 8 or 9 p.m. goofing around. They're asleep. And then they're up early working out, reading, meditating, and preparing for their day. Challenge yourself with those areas that you may not be comfortable with. If a 4-day work week can't get into your day, find some other ways.
I agree with you, Sam. Sorry, Rigo, you got something?
No. I was just saying, I like it. I was going to go ahead, Ruben.
I've been in a 4-day work week, and man, it depends, right? It depends on the situation, depends on where you're working. It works great for Europe, and I don't even think they have a 4-day work week. I think they get off early on Friday. I don't know how it works. Depends, right? I've seen it go both ways. I've seen the guys that make stuff happen, turn and burn, and be productive. I see other people just waiting for Friday, and then they have that long weekend, and then they call in sick on Monday. So, yeah, I've got mixed feelings about it. Depends on your team. Like I said, know your team. What we do here, take care of your stuff, man. Get everything taken care of. You want to go on vacation, make sure we get that done. It always takes care of itself. So if there's nothing going on, you don't need to be here. So we're good. That's the way we do it. It works well for us. But like I said, we're a smaller company.
Yeah, awesome. So David made a comment, but no, this has been great. I like where this is going. We're going to go ahead and kind of shift this up a little bit and talk about some other things here quick. But before we do that, Sam, I know you weren't going to be able to have the entire hour to chill and hang out with us and have this discussion. So I just want to thank you very much for getting on. I love your insights, man. I know the audience does. I've always enjoyed speaking with you. You have always such a great point looking at stuff. And I just want to thank you for your time. So I appreciate it. If you guys are watching this for the first time, do me a favor, look up our guest. If you're not following Samuel Tasker on LinkedIn, you have to look up Samuel. Go ahead and give him a buzz. Find him. We'll drop some stuff here in the comments later too. But hook up with him, connect. He's a great guy to know, and a good friend of mine, and I enjoy his time. So thanks, Sam. I appreciate it. We'll check you in a little bit. Talk to you later.
Don't work too hard. Bye, guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. One of the other things too that we like to let people know is if this is the first time you're watching this is Lunch Talk. It's just a program where we're just trying to bring up opportunities for us to have open discussions, you guys. That's really what this is about. This is the kind of things that people like Ruben, myself, Sam, and so many others, this is what we've enjoyed. This is the things that we would talk about. And I know maybe some of the subjects may be boring or not that interesting, or maybe you are curious about what it's about, but this is your opportunity to get engaged. Drop stuff in the comments. Let us know. What do you want to hear? What do you want to talk about? More importantly, if you're watching this live, drop a hashtag live. There it is. Thank you, Dave. Dave is the man. He knew it was coming. He knew it was coming. He nailed it. Hashtag live. That way we know that you're watching live. If you are watching this on a replay, then hashtag replay. But again too, and for those of you who are outside of the States, the number won't work. I've learned that. But if you want to know when we go live, just hashtag lunch to 316-799-8052. That's hashtag lunch, 316-799-8052. We have some giveaways that we're supposed to get out. It's been a while. It's just been a crazy month. We got those coming up. Those of you who won the last rounds will be notifying you and getting them out to you shortly. So anyways, let's give a little shift here in topic, Donnie. We'll go ahead and move on. I'm gonna grab some other stuff here real quick. Ruben, what'd you think about Sam's comments in regards to the leadership aspect and what he talked about for remote? I mean, I thought he nailed some really good points.
Right. I mean, look, at the end of the day, people don't want to do a bad job. Nobody wakes up and says, I can't wait to suck today. I mean, nobody does that. So you have to find out what motivates your team and foster that and empower that and let them go, let them fly. And you're going to fall. Everybody's going to fall a little bit. Heck, that's how we learn. And the trick for us as leaders is to get them back up in the air. So, like I said, easier said than done.
It is. So apologize. We're running through I'm getting a little bit of broadband issues. It always happens right in the middle of the show. I love it. Nothing better than that. But let me drop some stuff off here. That should make it a little bit better. I'm going to close some of my windows. So now customer engagement, right? That's a big one.
So what are we talking? Are we talking just one-on-ones? We talking about contact? We just talking about the lack of conferences?
You know what? I would say even just kind of developing the relationship. So before we get into that, for those who don't know you, why don't you share a little bit about the role you play and the company that you're representing? I think that's important so people know where it's coming from.
Right. So right now I'm the president of Lighthouse Global Energy. What we do is we sell wind turbine parts, primarily aftermarket, and we have ties in Denmark, Italy, Germany, and we try to get you guys parts as quick as you need them. Right now, we're struggling with a lot of what the world's struggling with is material. So there's some challenges in that. We've got a good team. We're working it. We have great partnerships. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that your turbines are up and running. As far as my background, I've been in wind since 2007. Got out of the military and jumped right in. It was kind of a culture shock, and I learned a lot and failed a lot, and it's been a ride, and I'm glad to be here. I think this is one of the best industries you can be in. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I think the military has helped me, bring a different light to the places I've worked, and I'm thankful for that.
So let's get into that because that's one of the things that I've noticed being in this industry. It's very attractive to a lot of ex-military. And just like you, I mean, I'm glad I'm here. It was an industry. We talked about this here the other day. After we got back from South Dakota, one of the things that got me as I was sitting there looking out, I realized how tough would that be to get into an industry like this at this time when there's no events happening where you can connect. And this is such a social development type of network, right? I mean, think about the way that we've all gotten to know each other. I mean, you and I, we laugh about this, but we'd have events where I'm in Germany and I hear somebody screaming across a hallway at a show with 10,000 people, Rigo, right? Yeah. I mean, we'd see each other all over the world. This is how small our industry is.
So, yeah, it would be a little bit challenging, but at the same time, we didn't do that. I mean, that's not how I got hired. I didn't go to a conference. it was a God thing for me because I kind of fell into it and didn't know anything about it. And the rest was history. So, I don't know that conferences are needed. You have some strong schools out there right now that take care of you. Shout out to my buddy Grant Johnson. He loves military guys. He loves Marines too. I've got a Marine right now somewhere in the Pacific. So, yeah, Grant loves his Marines. TSTC here right down the road in Sweetwater, Texas, they do a great job too. Not to discount anybody else, but those are just the two that I'm really familiar with. So I think if you want to work and you're willing to work and, you put in the time and not scared, not afraid to get dirty, I think the sky's the limit in this industry.
I agree, 100%, 100%. You had made you mentioned something I wanted to bring up, but I got distracted. I apologize. Right now, we one of the things we've seen, we've got some folks that we work with. We're gonna have a guest on here in another week or two. We're trying to work around the schedule, but this is in regards to like the staffing issues. Have you seen that? I mean, this is a little interesting, right? When's the last time we've seen such an issue just getting people into positions? I mean, are we growing that fast, or is there a problem with getting employment?
So personally, I can't answer that from the industry that we're in and when, because I don't deal with manpower anymore. I used to, and it was always challenging because it's not a normal job. I mean, we're asking these guys to travel all over, leave their wives, girlfriends, whatever at home, and climb 300 feet and play with voltage. I mean, it's crazy when you say it out loud. So it's got to be the right person, and that's okay. You're going to go through growing pains, get the wrong guys, but these good companies are going to start to create this technician that they want. So they'll partner with schools again. They'll quick story. We worked out here, wind farm, out by Albany, Texas.
Okay.
And prison guards, craziest thing in the world. Who would have thought prison guards make great technicians? Those guys are running companies now, and we have one of them on our team. And those guys taught me a lot. And I never would have guessed in a million years that a prison guard can do that. I mean, because they had the discipline. Those guys could follow procedures. Those guys could read a manual. Those guys would follow it. Those guys would make sure that everybody that they took up tower would follow it. So we pulled from that. We used that to our advantage. So it's just things like that. And I know in the Midwest, I'm sure, if people would see this, they could say, oh, in the Northwest, we do this. The Midwest, we like these guys. And I'm sure it's different everywhere. It's just funny how that stuff works. And it goes back to the discipline. And Sam hit on it a little bit. I think what Sam was saying is that, you have to be consistent, go to bed early and get up and take care of business every day. And, it's kind of boring, but consistency can be boring, and that leads to success.
Well, you know what? I would say not so much, I guess if you look at it, you might say it is, but it's all about building habits, right? It's all about building habits. I agree with you, Dave Reed. It's all about planning. Stop procrastinating is absolutely where it needs to be. And, habit building is the absolute key to creating that singular momentum for you in success in your life, right? It's not about failure. It's not about any of those aspects. It's not even about the wins that you have, because with every win, you're going to have levels of success. We look at these analogies, right? You look at sports as a great analogy. And I want to give two examples. We look at baseball, and we look at the greatest Hall of Fame baseball batters, right? And we're looking at those specific stats. and they're in the mid 300s, right? For someone to have a high 300 average, I mean, these are Hall of Famers. These are amazing, athletes. Think about that. That they're not hitting everything. In fact, they're missing and swinging and missing more than they're hitting. Then you look at the aspect of process. It's a great example. I heard this recently, and I love the analogy because the speaker was saying, look at football as a perfect example that it's not about managing people, it's about managing our process. And when you look at that, football is a great example of it because you could take the best player, put them on a bad team that has a bad process and bad leadership, and you're not going to that player is never going to be spotlighted, right? And they're never going to have the opportunity to grow. You look at a team that may not even be the best team, but a team that has good processes and a good system, and you're going to take an average mediocre player and you're going to spotlight that person. So true. when I look at it, for us, creating the habits, building those specific habits in our lives for growth, that is absolutely important. We talked about some other things too, taking time, focusing on ourselves, reading. Dave Reese said fishing, right? What are we doing to self? I guess it would be self, care. Yeah, and it looks like my video froze up. That's fine. You guys can still hear me. Self-care, and then the other aspect is putting in processes and steps and systems that will ensure that whatever you're doing is going to be repeatable, and coachable and teachable. So we'll let my video catch up as it gets all freaky.
Back to what you were saying about, are we really in a need of that many technicians? I think we are. I hear the buzz. The experts would be, the Airways, the Runs of the world. Renew, shout out to all those guys. They did a great job and worked their asses off. So I know you hear about those guys talking about that. So it's got to be a need. If you can't get a guy to work at McDonald's, the only time I've ever seen anything like this would be in a volatile market, like an oil and gas market, where they're offering, like the Midland Odessa area. You would see signs that would say $20 an hour to work at McDonald's, and it's just because all those people were going to the oil and gas market. So that's what it reminds me of. Now, when you say volatile, it's kind of scary because then what does that mean for us and the rest of the country? Because like you said, when we were traveling to South Dakota, that was something that was common between where we're from and where we went, was that they're having a hard time finding people. So that's a real issue.
Well, yeah, Ruben, I really appreciate your time here today. I know your time is valuable. You guys, if you like what we're talking about, if you want to hear other topics and engagements, you want us to bring on different types of guests, let us know. It's real simple. Comment here in the chat. Let us know you're watching live, #live. But at the same time, let us know what else we can do to bring good topics out that are important to you and that you want to engage in. We want to be able to do this more often, but we want it to matter. And again, we do this because this is a perfect time. It's the middle of the week. Well, they call it a hump day. It's the lunch hour for most of us, unless you're in Europe, like some of our folks watching. But again, what we want to do is just get out, talk with you, chat, have some fun, talk about a few things, and go from there. So I don't know. Outside of that, Ruben, again, I just want to thank you. I thank you for being here. I appreciate it. You got anything else you want to share? You want to plug some stuff?
No, man. I appreciate you having me. It's always good to see you and Sam. And we can't do this at the bar or at a conference or So got to make the best of it.
No, absolutely. So thanks again. I appreciate it. So you guys, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching. If you want to know more, please do me a favor. Again, just do a hashtag lunch, LUNCH, to 316-799-8052. That puts you on our community. We can let you know when we're going live. Make sure to follow Ruben. Find him on LinkedIn. We'll drop some stuff in the chat too. Another guy that you guys should be paying attention to. And yeah, we'll see you next week. So it's every week, right here, 1:00 p.m. Central Time. We've got a lot of other great stuff planned, and we're going to get into more conversation soon. And we're going to bring some fun into the show. We got some ideas coming. So, anyways, we'll talk to you guys later. Appreciate it. Have a great one, and talk to you next week.